Damn, don't break it.
Welcome everybody to the special call meeting for Thursday, June 9th, 2022 of Suwannee County Commissioners. At this time, Mr. Flynn, will you give an invocation of the pledge, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our Father, we come this morning again, stumble hearts and our heads, call on your name. Thank you for the many blessings you bestowed upon us, and pray that you bless these commissions. We want to give us strength to go our county at whole as we take care of the county business. Lead us and guide us in the path of righteousness and take care of your children. Father, we ask these and all blessings that you look over the sick, the bereaved families everywhere. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 1, discuss with possible board action a development agreement option to sell property at Catalyst site for the purposes of economic development and job creation. Mr. Harris.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, you've had an opportunity to read the agreement. It's a fairly basic one that addresses the fundamentals of the relationship that we'll have with this proposed project. For the public's benefit, I'll just go ahead and announce that the items or the names, the identity of the company and the principals have been eliminated because we've got a non-disclosure agreement that is still intact and will be until such time that an option to purchase is exercised. This agreement includes consideration of a piece of property that's on the Catalyst site. For those that may not know in the public, the Catalyst site was established for the purpose of industrial and commercial development and job creation. We have more to do out there. We have infrastructure, but today it's attractive to companies because we have a rail spur in and we have water and fire flow available and some new paving that's gone out there and railroad crossing. In any event, the company's had several meetings with county representatives. They're prepared to move forward and begin implementing their plans through numerous meetings. They've, I think, convinced those of us that have participated that they're well established and ready to make some really exciting things happen out there. In any event, for board consideration, you've got the property identified in there. Mr. Pravat made sure, and we went back and forth and worked on this together, along with some others, I guess. And the company has reviewed this agreement, but there are job creation benchmarks in there. There are capital investment benchmarks that have been outlined as well. And then there's the subject property that they will have an option on if they choose to exercise it. So I'd be requesting, the action I'd be requesting is that the board approve this. If the board approves it, we will have the chairman sign it. It will need to be attested by the clerk. It'll have to go back to the other party for their signature. It will not become a public document until such time that the non-disclosure agreement either goes away or they exercise the option to purchase.
That being said, I've sat in on a lot of this and well aware of it and have no problem with it. Any others? Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
On the NDA, so you said that goes away after they close on the property or it expires, just so that we don't violate that anyway?
NDAs will traditionally expire at a certain time, but in this particular case, if they decide to exercise the option to purchase, then
It becomes
our real estate transactions and certain agreements are confidential until such time that they are exercised. In this case, it would be a decision to
Yeah,
purchase. the property.
clarify just a little bit, when you're talking about the NDA expiring, the company's name will then be known as a result of that. But as a result of the NDA, there's still a lot of trade secret information, financial information, all of that stuff that will still be, under under wraps for an extended period of time. I believe it's up to 18 months from about today. But that type of information would remain non-disclosed, confidential.
I just want to make sure I didn't make any announcement that would violate that.
Well, yeah, you can't see it that part, but again, because it's all, everything in here is contingent on them exercising the option. But because when they exercise the option, then for us to be able to sell it to them, we have to put a real name on it.
Yeah.
So at that particular time, which would be, whenever we do that particular agenda item, it will then be public.
Okay, fair enough.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Fleming.
I tried to listen well, and I heard the question that was asked. But 18 months is a pretty good long time. And that means that all the businesses, everything is all legal and done, and that's it.
It's just the information that they provide to the county is trade secret information, their financial disclosure information, that stuff, so that we could do our due diligence, on them. That's the type of information that would then stay confidential for that extended period of time. Not the rest of the project and moving forward with that kind of thing.
Anybody else?
I would echo your sentiments. I've sat in a couple of these meetings with some of the folks with this company. Mr. North has been there, Mr. Pravat, Mr. Harris, everybody. I think they know what they're doing and got finances to do it.
And Mr. Chairman, I just add kind of the conversation you guys were just having for public knowledge. The reason they have assigned these NDAs and not discuss this stuff up to however many months is not to pull something over on the public, but as the council said, it's a trade secret. They don't want the competition knowing where they're at, what they're doing, and what their plans are. It's nothing against anyone here in Suwannee County. It's just part of their way of doing business. So, just want to mention that.
With that being said, do I have a motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, I'll motion.
Motion by Commissioner Fleming, second by Commissioner Stapleton. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 2, approval of task order with North Florida Professional Service in the amount of $68,000 for services associated with the Davis-Bacon Act as required for the County Road 137 Utility Extension Project. Mr. Harris.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, there was a question Tuesday regarding whether or not we had already included the Davis-Bacon monitoring in the previous task order with North Florida Professional Services. In your packet, in this packet behind tab 2, you've got all of the task orders associated with utilities out there. And as I had pointed out, and I didn't have a problem pulling it, because it gave us time to go ahead and pull all the documents so that you could see it yourself. But we had done the Davis-Bacon on the County Road 136 and I-75, part of the utilities and the construction of the water plant, sewer plant. But we did not do it for the extension on County Road 137. If you recall, and I didn't remember this the other night, but if you recall, we had actually, when we decided to do the extension of the utilities on 137, we were initially going to do a change order with the contractor that we already had for 136. We changed that change order, modified it some, and called it a separate agreement as an extension of the 136 contract that we had, but we did not go back and do the Davis-Bacon for that 137 section. So later, when ARPA sent out new guidance on the use of the funds, we canceled that contract. The contractor agreed to do that. We did that work out then, and we had already entered into the task order for the design with North Florida, but at that time we didn't have a reason to do the Davis-Bacon. We didn't have a contractor yet. But in any event, I spoke with the chairman about this yesterday, and we actually contacted Fox Enterprises to get a figure from them on what they would charge. Their charge was $100,000 and $115,000 if they had to do an environmental review as well. But that $100,000 would be be compared to the 68 that you have in front of you today. And I'm gonna point this out to you. I've spoken to Shannon about this. We're gonna contact these grant administrators and see if in the future, if we can start handling this piece ourselves. I don't believe it's all that complex. I've talked to the chairman and one or more of you about our need to get some help in that office, so we are loaded up. But I'm confident that the work associated with this type of monitoring for the Davis-Bacon certification, that we can do it ourselves and save the money. So that's my plan going forward, is to check into that and see if they'll allow us to do that. Because otherwise, they force you to use a third party for these types of things, and it's very expensive when you do that. And in my opinion, there isn't that much work associated with some of the things that we're being required to use a third party for.
Well, just to clarify, I did go back and look at the meeting on video. And you're correct, we did approve the Davis-Bacon. I mean, the Davis-Bacon was included in the contract for the contractor, but this is for the monitoring of the Davis-Bacon.
That's correct. Yeah, the Davis-Bacon requirement was in the specifications, so it became a part of the contract, along with, in this particular case, there was also Buy American Steel, which is also a federal requirement. So those things were in the contract, and we discussed that, but the monitoring itself is a
And I
separate.
did.
So you weren't entirely crazy, you do remember.
I did remember it, but I didn't realize we had to pay for monitoring. I thought it was just included with the contractor, and I didn't realize we had to pay for this too.
Right.
Beside that, and I did complain to Mr. Harris about how expensive it was, and I said, can you go back and see if we can negotiate this? And well, he called Fox, and they came from 200,000 to 100,000, and we're still better off with North Florida Professional Services. But I don't disagree going forward that I don't think it wouldn't be cheaper to hire somebody to monitor this. If you had 2 contracts a year, would way more than pay for somebody to do this.
For an employee, absolutely.
This is, I mean.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
sorry.
sir, go ahead.
I mean, I would second that. I guess going forward, being new to the board, I'm gonna need Mr. Harris to kind of dumb it down for me a little bit. You know, when we talked about Davis-Bacon in the approval of the bid that night, I was under the assumption that, all right, this is it. This is Davis-Bacon, this is everything. Like, there's no other, maybe that's my inexperience. And then you get hit with, oh, well, here's another 68,000, by the way, for Davis-Bacon monitoring, which is outside of the construction part of the deal.
That's
And I understand it, but at the time, like the other night, I was like, wait a minute, I was agreeing with him, like, I remember us talking about it, but just a little, with everything we got going on in improvement projects with infrastructure and stuff, I mean, we're gonna have to be putting some skin in the game, and, you know, it's a little disappointing that we're gonna have to shell out another $68,000 for some monitoring services, I guess is all I'm gonna say, but.
Well, just to make sure they use American steel.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems,
Seems like a lot of money.
I'd like to be in that business right now, is all I can tell you.
Well, I agree. A lot of our CDBG agreements isn't optional. We have to use a third-party administrator, and your typical minimum charge there is $200,000 to have someone. And let me just say, for that $200,000, Shannon and I still do all the work.
Just submit it.
We do all the work, we put it together, and we allow a third party to look at it and sign off on a form and send it in, and we pay them $200,000 to do that.
Wasn't it? I'm sorry.
Mr. Lane?
With what you're saying, what are the, first time I looked at this, I see all these qualifications and licenses and all this, these resumes in here behind this stuff. What are if we choose to, going forward, try to hire our own person, what are the qualifications to be able to monitor this stuff? I mean, you got engineers, you got surveyors, you got all kinds of people in here.
Yeah, but you
So
see,
he's asking the same question I did. What's the likelihood, probability?
they don't have to
we
be
can do this?
engineers, okay?
Okay.
They sent their qualifications in here, but you're actually monitoring some payroll issues, is what you're monitoring, wages. There's a benchmark wage that you have to ensure is being paid by the contractors and all the vendors and everyone else paying their employees. But that's part of the question when we speak to them. If they agree to let us do it ourselves, then I'll have all of the requirements of having someone handle that. But I don't have it today. because we've always used a third-party administrator. And there's other parts that we may still have to use a third-party administrator, but I like to get it down to as little as possible to curb the expense.
No good. Anybody else?
No, I agree with everything we're saying, you know, if we can handle it in-house or get someone certified to do this for us.
Outside of this 68,000, there's nothing else we can do. Is that what you're saying, Mr. Harris?
That's it, that's correct.
Comment?
Sir? Name and address, please.
My name is Tom Burnett, and I live in Suwannee County, 1298 192nd Street. Are these projects audited after it's completed and final payments made?
Yes.
Doesn't the auditor examine that for payroll to determine whether or not the Bacon, as one of the contract stipulations, the auditor should be looking at that to see if the Bacon Act has been complied with?
They do, but they're not performing the monitoring themselves. The auditor is coming from the grant administrator, someone hired by them. It's either gonna be an employee of the grant administrator, the federal government, or someone they've hired to come in. And what they're looking at is the fact that the monitoring report and certifications have all been put together. And all of that has to be put together prior to the time that we close out our grant agreement.
Well, and that's fine, but if the auditor at the end of the project were to say, okay, this wasn't complied with, that would be an audit exception and would go back to whomever to be corrected. I don't understand why the ongoing monitoring is needed. Is that done at each payment, like monthly?
I'm gonna help you understand what I had to understand.
Okay,
And what these commissioners are understanding, it is a federal requirement.
that it's monitored.
That it be monitored and that there's
Okay.
a certification done.
We have no choice.
Rest my case.
Isn't it great to be a taxpayer?
I mean, these things just make you crazy after a while, it's unbelievable.
I like the shirt, by the way.
I tutor math, by the way. Okay. And as a side issue, the public library offers online tutoring help, free of charge, 10 in the morning till midnight, 7 days a week.
There you go.
In case y'all can't read that, it says 4 out of 3 people struggle with math.
I had one lady said, that's 75%. Honest to God.
Wow.
Any other discussion or motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Hale,
I don't like it, but I'll say it.
second by Commissioner Land. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 3, adoption of resolution authorizing county administrator to administer grant number FM 591 for design and construction of fire station located on US 129 North and sign all related documents. Mr. Harris.
This is the result of an email that I think I received yesterday or the day before from the state regarding this particular funding that we received. There were some modifications in there, some very minor modifications and some changes that they made and needed to be signed and sent back to them. We never did the actual resolution that provides the authorization. You'll see these oftentimes come through when we initially speak regarding these. In this particular case, we didn't do the resolution, so I need the authorization so I can sign the documents.
What documents are we talking about signing here, Mr. Harris?
Everything associated with that particular grant. Every time we do a pay certification, or anything associated with grants that someone has to, from the county has to sign off, stating that the work has been completed according to the specifications and we're in compliance with their requirements.
But it's not an authorization to spend more money. It's just to sign documents.
They're not gonna allow us to spend more than what they've given us, more than they've allocated. Now, we're gonna be spending more money than that to get the project done. But we're not gonna spend any more of their money than they've actually allocated to this particular project.
Well, what I'm getting at is that anything additional would have to be more approved as far as finances go, money-wise.
Every expenditure comes back to the board regardless. That's
Thank you.
correct.
That's what I want to clarify. Mr. Williams?
Yeah, just 2 comments. One is, I don't really like these last minute additions unless it's, super duper time specific. Cause one, in the public's eyes, it looks like we're trying to pull a fast one. I understand that some of the stuff here is time specific. But this came out at 5:30 last night, and for a special call meeting at 9 a.m. and for transparency purposes, us commissioners, I know I do, kind of get beat up on last minute changes to the agendas, especially special calls. So I would, just like to ask or make the comment that if it's not, super duper time specific, that we do it on the regular agenda. So for transparency purposes and the conspiracy theorists out there, that it's nothing underhanded's going on there. But that's just a comment. My question kind of goes along with what you were asking, Mr. Chairman. Was the way I read it was for design and construction and sign-on related documents. So my question was kind of mirrors yours, and it goes back to the comment I made on number 2. We got some really big projects. This is going to be a good project that we have, I believe, $1 million in the budget for, $1.2 million, something like that. I just wanted to make sure that those costs, if they go above that, come back to the board. Because we got to put some skin in the game on a lot of other projects that are also very important. Not that this one's not. This is a good one too. I'm not knocking the project. I just don't want our costs to get away from us to go from $1 million to a $2 million deal halfway through construction or something like that, when we know we got some infrastructure projects that are going to be very important to the community too.
Quite a few. This is a project that's in design right now. Once that design is completed, it goes to bid. All those bids come back to the board. So you're going to know at that point where we are. But what's going to happen along the way here is I'm going to have to sign certifications that stormwater permitting has occurred and a lot of other permits and everything else associated with just getting it at that point. These agencies, all of them on all your projects, I have to sign numerous certifications that utilities have been identified, we're not interfering with anything, all the permits have been pulled, we've submitted everything in accordance with the requirements, terms and conditions of the contract with the grant administrator, all those types of things. There are many, many documents that have to sign on every one of these projects that we get grant funds for.
Well, I don't want it to sound like I don't trust you, but I just want the public to know that we're just not giving away our power to control the financial part of this. That's so it's clarified.
There's nothing in any of these that would ever allow that to occur, because everything has to come back to the board before we ever enter into a contract to spend that money. So just like the task order for the design, that had come to the board. And you remember we had conversations on, in this particular case, on this property, clearing the property and the grubbing, and I'm sure there are other things as well, but the survey work, that had to come to the board. Every step of the way, prior to an expenditure, there's gonna be an agreement of some sort. It'll either be a task order or a contract. The next big ticket item probably is gonna be the contract once we get a bid out. That'll come back to the board for board consideration on the bids, and then you can make a decision on awarding the contract. So there isn't a resolution that ever allows the administrator to assume the role of the Board of County Commissioners when it comes to authorizing an expenditure.
That's the point I was trying to get at. I mean, may have not asked it right, or I'm still getting educated on government, so I'm not sure sometimes we approve stuff like this, and I want to ask more to educate myself and let the public know what we're doing. So that was my only point in that.
There you go.
With that, is there any other discussion? Or
No,
motion
sir.
approved?
I'm just learning too, so don't take any offense to my ignorant question.
No, it's fine. It's a good question.
Do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Hale, second by Commissioner Land. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I just have a few things. I'll be brief on it. It's just, and I wouldn't bring it up, but it's kind of time important that we get to some of this. And Mr. Norris, could I get you to come up here so we can discuss some of this? I hate to put you on the hot seat, but welcome to the party.
I'm might should just go back there and hang out with Mr. Hancock.
We've been in discussions, and Mr. Harris knows where I'm coming from with this as well. But we had a discussion with a lady yesterday who is a lobbyist / grant writer named Jennifer Green. I'm not sure what her company name is, but had a good discussion with her yesterday, and as you all know, we hired a lobbyist named Mike Grissom that's working for us in Tallahassee, and this lady here, she works hand in hand with him, and she has a lot of access to a lot of different people there too as well. But her main job is finding, writing, and as far as I can tell, administering the grants for a percentage basis. And I don't want to get into all that, but what I'm trying to get here is I just want to bring her for a meeting at our next board meeting, if I can arrange it, so she can discuss this with us as a board. And if I can get her here before then to talk to Mr. Harris and see if it fits in with what we need to be doing. So I'm just trying to put a, we got a lot of grant money coming down from the federal government, and it's coming real quick. And I'm trying to just put a team together, even in his office and outside private people, to get this job done as quickly as possible. So if you have anything to add to that, did I handle it pretty well, or I just want to make sure I covered the base on it. And I just want to get y'all's thoughts on it.
I can add to that, if you will, Mr. Chairman. I also met with Representative Shope yesterday. He was in town. The Republican Party had him there at their headquarters here in Live Oak yesterday, 2 o'clock. Anyway, I got an opportunity to meet with him. Mr. Norris was there as well. And he highly recommended, as others have, is going with a third-party grant writing company. They have boots on the ground. That's what they do for a living. That's what they focus on, as well as, they have attorneys. Some of them have attorneys on staff. They have lobbyists. They're in Tallahassee. Most of them have offices across the state, but most of them all have at least one office in Tallahassee. They're there every day. They're seeing people in person, physically, and I know there's been some discussion about hiring our own grant writer. I'm just going to say I'm opposed to that. I think that, and I'll tell you where I'm going with that is why I'm opposed to it. Because one, I think that the physical appearance in Tallahassee every day is not something we could establish with our own person being here in Live Oak, sending emails and calling and talking, versus someone that has a support staff and they're shaking hands and seeing folks in Tallahassee every day, where this money comes from most of the time. But on a national level, on a federal level, I'm just going to say it because it's all over the news. I mean, they say the Republicans have a good chance of winning the House and the Senate, and if that does, I mean, there's analysts that are saying the money's going to slow down. Well, we put someone on the payroll and the money slows down or dries up, and the opportunities don't go away, but decrease because the Republican puts the brakes on the spending, which they've been known to do. Whether you're for or against them doesn't matter. That's just a fact. I just think time is of the essence, and to hire somebody in-house to try to get them up to speed and train would take time, and I don't know that we got the time to do that. And I don't know if we have to do it through an RFP or RFQ, or I'm ignorant on that part of the process. But I think time is of the essence for us to get someone to help Mr. Grissom chase this federal money before it starts to dry up, and get our hands on it before the well goes dry and they put the brakes on it. That's my take. And Shope agreed. He's like, your money way ahead hiring.
Can I say
hiring
something,
a
Mr.
third.
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I want to be very clear about this. There are different pieces to grants. My interpretation of what you just said, I agree with 100% when it comes to writing grants. If we can find somebody to help write grants, wonderful. that's exciting to me. If it's a grant that's being managed by the state, and we need a presence there, that's even better. Someone, if they've got a presence in Tallahassee, and I support that 110%. There are some grants that are simply applications that are online, like this Florida grant thing. Now, in this particular case, we spoke with our lobbyist, Mike, and he went through and read the whole thing and said, looks great, go ahead and send it. And there are numerous grants that are like that. In that case, you don't need a grant writer. It's just a matter of us, because we have to put all of the data together that goes into those grant applications. If we hire a grant writer, we will compile that data and get it to them, and I'm still thrilled for them to handle that. The part that takes time is grant management, which happens in the local office. There may be some that actually handle pieces of grant management. In fact, the chairman and I spoke, and I'm excited about talking to this woman to see what they actually offer. But absent having a person sitting in your office on the receiving end of your daily reports from your CEI and our inspector, and all of the change orders and all of the verification, certifications, the percentage of completion, all of those types of things, absent them having someone there to handle that, we are still left with the lion's share of the work associated with the grant management end. So if we, and one reason that I'm interested in talking to this party is to see if they're actually trying to do that, or in the alternative, if they are simply like a third-party administrator, where we would still do everything that we're currently doing, and we'd send the package to them and they would look at it. There's a company we spoke to in a conference call either yesterday or the day before that said that they would monitor all of those things that we're doing to ensure that they're compliant with the grant contract. That isn't helping us to have somebody monitor. So on the grant writing, find them, go tackle, find the grants, let's get them awarded. Let's find all the people in the world that can help us do that. But the next question is, how do we address the grant management end of it in such a way that it allows us to either offload that responsibility to someone, or the alternative, we're just gonna have to hire someone to help us manage that lion's share of that in our office. So that's really what we're looking at.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you at all. I just want to make sure that I understand that these folks go. My intention is to hire the folks to go chase the money and find it and get it. If at that point they want to pass the burden of the management to us, then yeah, we probably need to hire somebody to help facilitate and manage that grant. If they'll take on the burden and manage it themselves, well, let's talk about what are you going to charge us for that, and then maybe weigh our options. But that's kind of where I was at with it. It's like you said, these folks that know people and do this for a living, I'd rather hire them at a percentage or whatever they get paid. Y'all go find us the money, tell us what we qualify for, and we'll tell you if we want it or not, and get it for us. Let's get it, and then figure out who's going.
Well, on the phone call, correct me if I'm wrong, when we were talking to her yesterday, she was like 1% to write it and 5% to, and we ain't got that. This is just a phone conversation. This is why I'm bringing it before y'all, just so you got an idea of what we talked about. I just want to bring it full circle. And she's done a couple of projects in the Panhandle, and she got, I forget what county it was, Holmes County or one of them, $6 million for a sewer plant. So, and I talked to her about the grant management, and it seemed like that's kind of what they did too, but until we get her here and get her in front of us, I don't know really, what she does. But I just want to bring y'all in on it, everybody that's not there, to be aware of where I'm trying to get to and where I think we all are trying to get to.
I guess the biggest thing is we all know the money's out there. And so take a step back a few weeks when I was down at FETC, sitting, how those things were, all the different sessions and workshops and stuff. And
And one particular one's talking about all the money that's coming down the line, and a lot of it's dropping, July 1st. The comments were made that pretty much if you already don't have your grant writer in place, if you're not doing right now, you're already behind, and that's gonna be on your individual county, because we've known this money's coming. So, as Mike was there, so Mike and I sit down and had some conversations, and so we were trying to brainstorm, because he needs help. He'll chase it for us, but we gotta give him the items he needs to chase. And so, we threw around several ideas and talked about grant writing we're doing here locally, which is wonderful. But then, because of the urgency of it, some of his recommendation was we might need to try to get with somebody who knows what's out there and what to go after, and let them be working for Suwannee County as well. So from that conversation moving forward, he suggested a couple names, and so we made a couple calls to check. This particular person you're talking about has come very highly recommended, and he works with her. So the whole thing is just about trying to find, because of all these projects and things we're working on, as we all know, dollars for infrastructure. And this particular person was one of the people at the conference that actually was putting on the program, like actually was teaching the class. So credentials are there for sure, but they offer all kind of different services. I think it's more of what you want. She sent me this email last night at 7:20. It talks about, they can do planning, research, grant writing, grant management. I think it's going to be more what you guys feel you need from her, or her, if you go that way. But it's an option. And the biggest thing I could emphasize is we're really short on time. Speaking with Representative Shook yesterday, that was one of the things that he really said was, you guys need to really get in front of this, because you're going to miss out if you don't. So, he asked us to let him know what we were really was the most important to us, and I think we know that. So
Right now it's utilities.
Yeah.
We're after utilities right now.
I agree with that.
And
But she also said we needed a capital improvement plan in place.
Yeah, I've spoken to Shannon about that. In fact, I'm just gonna tell you, I called Ronald Meeks about this because there's also a capital element in your comprehensive land use plan. If you put something in there, you're supposed to be prepared to have the money within 5 years. So I don't know that we need to do that, but at the very least, we just need to do an amendment to our capital improvement plan and list these projects out. I think one of the utilities projects, and maybe the one that went from here to the music park, we put in there years ago. But I can throw them all together real quick. In fact, we've already got the estimates on everything for the catalyst out there, the water and sewer and everything, but we can put that together real quick. One thing that I realized with a lot of this money, in fact, I'm gonna tell you how I realized this. The state is not set up to handle this money, period. And I'm gonna tell you how I know that. One, we still don't have our agreement on the $5 million for the CDBG. See, the federal government is sending this money to the state to now handle a lot of this stuff in a much greater volume than they've ever dealt with before. They're not set up to handle it. So I'm still waiting now for that agreement. But in addition to that, I spoke to Mrs. Portwood with Rural Infrastructure Fund yesterday. Mr. Chairman, I want to comment briefly in a moment before we leave here about our discussion with the city of Live Oak. But that was a source I had identified as quick access to money if it got awarded, because historically that's been the case when I've made those requests. So I went to Rural Infrastructure and I called Mrs. Portwood, and she said, yes, we're going to have a pile of money that's going to be coming out. She isn't sure when. And I said, well, I'd like to apply for some funding. Do you have any idea when? She says, well, what we are struggling with, because it's a large lump sum that came from the federal government to them, and the state decided to put $25 million of that in the Rural Infrastructure Fund. they have never dealt with the federal requirements on the use of those funds. So a lot of things that we deal with in CDBG are very tight. In fact, all those things are going to be required, but with rural infrastructure funds out of that department, they've never had to set those requirements up before in their agreements. And now they're working on that, trying to get that set up. So they're going to have a backlog there. But having said that, I want to speak briefly on this issue of announcements of the money coming from Santa Claus in Washington. Here's what has happened. These announcements continue to come out that more and more money's coming. And everybody talks about the fact that money's coming. It takes forever for it to actually materialize. And even then, if it makes it to a state to administer through an office like VEO, you have to wait for those agencies to get set up to handle it. That's one reason that we would absolutely be better off having a grant writer that can track that for us. I've tried to do it myself and I can't keep up with it. You know, we've called, Shannon and I back and forth, called the Treasury Department on certain types of funds and announcements that have been made, only to find that, well, no, it hasn't gone yet, hasn't moved yet, hasn't been signed off by Congress yet. And we can't spend a lot of time trying to chase that stuff. So if grant writers can keep up with that in Tallahassee or someplace else, and we can procure their services, that'd be great for us, because they're better suited to try to keep up with that type of thing.
What do we have to do? Is there an RFQ, or what do you have to do to?
We would typically, yeah, it takes a while to do it.
I was just asking him about that.
Yeah, there's monetary limits on some of the things we can do, work around personnel-wise rather than it being a construction project, but it's way too detailed to get into this, and without having any kind of numbers involved, I really can't offer a really good opinion.
It might be possible to do it as an RFP. It's still a cumbersome process. They could respond with their percentages, and then that would move us forward quicker. The RFQ just takes a lot more time.
Well, that's why I wanted to bring it up today, so we could get the ball rolling for whatever we need to do.
I can put an RFP together pretty quick and get it advertised for a grant writer, which is the initial piece, and we would have time then to deal with the management end of it once we've met with enough people and talked to them to see if what they're offering is actually what we need. But the grant writing piece of it, we can put an RFP together, I think, pretty quick and get it advertised. And then what we can do to save some time is call some of these people, like this woman. I don't know if this is the same woman that Shannon spoke to.
No, it's
a week
different.
ago.
It's different.
But we could call some of them and say, hey, we've got this RFP out, can you put a package together and get it back to us? And try to streamline the whole process, and we could run it for 2 weeks or 3 weeks instead of 30 days to try to save some time.
Jimmy, I haven't read that email yet, so is there anything in there that?
Well, I mean, again, it's just whatever services you guys want. I mean, she does strategic planning, grant research, grant writing, and grant management. She made a couple comments in the meantime. You guys may want to be thinking about, your capital improvement list and where you are on that, the biggest needs, which, we've been really working on. We kind of know right now, especially, I think, where some of those needs are. Want to know about shovel-ready projects, and that's going to make a difference on grants as if we're ready to go. Obviously, it's some of the, and again, she's unfamiliar, so like our catalyst site and things like that, we would have to bring her up to speed on. She mentions DOT projects too. Where are we at on funding with DOT, and do we have anything in the
We're at least 5 years out. That's where we are, which is a problem.
Always.
Classic example is County Road 137 and the businesses that are coming out there. We've got this narrow little pig trail that got paved over the years. It needs to be wider. It needs to have an ACL decel lane of, turn in ingress points for the one company that for sure that we know that's coming. So that was another big issue that I thought we needed to push for, was for, if you stick with your standard approach that we've got with DOT right now, it takes too long.
Yeah, and I think her question was, she's kind of wanting to know if we have anything in that 5-year plan that's coming, or do we need to be going for grant funding for those types of
We
things?
need to go for grant funding.
So, but again, it's just, this is just general stuff. There's a list of people she's worked for and references and things like that, if anybody, but But I think she's just saying I can do whatever you guys would want me to do if you're interested. So she comes very highly recommended. For me, I guess I know because, and of course you guys know as well, there's just so much that's coming from all different directions. You just really, I've been very excited about it, but we got, we've got to do our part so that we can capture the business when it comes. And so anything that can help the community, just trying to turn over rocks. If this rock helps us, fine, and if you guys don't want to, it's fine as well. But I don't want to miss anything, that may help us land business.
Mr. Chairman, do we need a, I'm sorry,
Let me go ahead.
Mr. Harris, do you need a motion to do that RFP? So we can do that now?
No, I'll go ahead and do it.
Okay. Sorry.
What happens with those, just quickly, I'm sorry.
That's right.
When I run bids and RFPs, they always have to come back to the board. So there are plenty of times we used to do that. We used to say, oh, can I have your permission to bid something? It was ridiculous. Because everyone knew where we were going, it just took extra time. So we run them, they always come back to the board.
That's just my question, if you needed authority to run it now.
No, we'll run them.
Go ahead, Mr. Flynn.
Mr. Fleming.
And Mr. Chairman, I've been sitting listening, and some of this stuff can be generic action. And you said earlier that you'd like to bring this lady to a meeting, or we need to meet with this lady so that we get a better understanding, or an understanding. I haven't had the opportunity to meet, I know I'll be out of pocket sometime, but it appears that, we need these kind of services in order to, when these things come about, we can move forward. Because Mr. Harris had a capital improvement plan 4 or 5 years ago that was working like clockwork. It was working, and, some type of capital improvement. When it came around, we know that we was able to proceed or able to move on. And in order to keep up, I remember, I'll go back to President Reagan. I saw a speech that he made in 1981, and I saw it again maybe 20 years later. In order for us to keep up with today's society, or keep up with what we're doing, we have to have stuff in place, have our plans in place in order to move with today's society. So I know that between you, economic director, the chairman, and the county administrator, our attorney down there, we need to get these people in here so that we all can hear them and we can ask questions, and then we really can move forward. That's all I want to say.
Well, that was kind of why I was bringing it up today while we were all here, because I want to keep you all involved as much as I possibly can. I don't want to seem like I'm out here just willy-nilly doing whatever, so I'm trying to bring it forward. But with that being said, let's talk about that capital improvement for just a minute and make sure we're all on the same page. I'm assuming the sewer plant at the Catalyst site would be number 1 on that list.
The sewer plant at the Catalyst site, I'm going to say yes with a caveat. I'll just tell you 2 things that are going on. One I was going to speak of, and it's the reason I made the phone call yesterday regarding rural infrastructure funds, is the piece over here north of the city limits. That may be more achievable sooner. So we don't necessarily have to number or prioritize in our capital improvement plan. We just want to list it in the capital improvement plan so that it's obvious as part of our plan. That's what we've been trying to get. That being said, I'm still communicating back and forth with DOT regarding the rest areas over here on I-10, and they have initiated the conversation regarding our utility services to service those 2 rest areas. So we've got a 50,000 gallon per day capacity, for example, and they need 500,000 gallons a day. So my question to them was, do y'all want to come up with the funding for that? They haven't ruled that out. They asked if we check with DEP to see if there was any available funding. We've done that. We're waiting for some responses back from some parties that had been on vacation. What I shared with the chairman regarding that was that if we expand the facilities at our plants to accommodate that, we have to construct our expansion and still have an additional 25% capacity over and above that. So if they were to pay that additional funding to expand our facilities, we would have 25% more capacity over and above that if they do that. And there's some other pieces that I won't go into right now that I've talked to the chairman about what he could be looking at, but those are just examples. Sometimes with your capital improvement plan, you don't want to prioritize because you don't know what's going to come first or what funding might become available first, but we need to have them listed. So I would say utilities, sewer plant, collection lines with the catalyst site, water transmission, which we're working on now. We've got a grant application in. We're also talking to state revolving fund about the balance of that funding. 129 North, all the way up to Music Park. That's been on the board for a long time. It needs to be in there. That might be the one that's already in there, but I'll take a look and see. And I'll be bringing this back to you pretty quick. And then we've got some potential extensions. I'll go ahead, Mr. Chairman, if you allow me. I'm
Yes,
just
sir.
talking about our meeting yesterday. We had a very good meeting with representatives of the city of Live Oak yesterday regarding utilizing their wastewater and water utilities. They don't have the cash to do the extensions. They don't have the money in their plan to do the extensions. We don't, but we have a lot of experience writing applications for grants and trying to find the money. That was the purpose of that call yesterday. So those types of extensions, I can speak to some of those in the capital improvement plan. What I would say is, like I identified yesterday in that meeting, we know we have a potential opportunity to the north off of 129. Those that were in the meeting yesterday are aware of an area down here not far off Bass Road. There's a parcel that would be a good location for development. Then off of Edgetuckney, and I had already spoken to the city manager about some of the capacity they have in those areas anyway. So, you know, we can speak to some joint ventures with the city of Live Oak. I think that that has the potential to come to fruition, unlike ever before. I mean, we've had a previous large meeting that didn't go anywhere, but you've got different personnel in place. You've got different councilmen in place today, and I think that it's doable now. I'm convinced of that. So we'll just try to call out all of those things. I'll also mention that County Road 137 needs to be in the capital improvement plan. And I'm convinced that the two overpasses over, one over I-75 and one over I-10, need to be in the capital improvement plan, because the day's gonna come where they're gonna need to be 4-lane and they're gonna need traffic signals out there, depending on business locations. So, in fact, many years ago, over at DOT, when we had in their office, had a conversation, they talked about the need to think about changing that overpass on I-75. And that probably started maybe even back, I don't know how long it's been since the farmer's market's been there, but I think there had been some discussion at that time about it. So those things need to be in there as well. And then very likely we're gonna need the same thing out here at I-10 and 90. That day will come.
Well, in our conversation with Live Oak yesterday, I wouldn't disagree that bypass around on the south end of town would probably need to be in the capital improvement plan as well.
And I'll share more about that when we bring it back. But
I'm just
I'll listen.
throwing
I
out-
agree with you. With
Just
that.
throwing out, and Mr. Norris, anything else?
Well, yeah, Mr. Harris just kind of, when he was commenting with the meeting with the city, I do want to thank them, and it was good, candid conversation, and we all are on the same page. But just to take that one step further, that piece that we're working on, you guys proving to pave 68, that road, and with our meeting yesterday with the city and them being willing to work with us on the utility piece there, has made a project was contingent upon those things happening. And so spoke with the owner of that project yesterday and let him know that those things were happening, and he is full speed ahead, and said he's working on design and engineering right now, and once we identify the location over there of like where the lift station and things are going, his guy's ready and to move forward on that thing, and you heard that call, and he'll share that information. So, but I just want to let you know that all this is contingent on a real project. So this information that we're talking about, working with the city, project.
Well, and talking to Ms. Green yesterday and also talking to Mike Grissom, the state really loves the city, county working together. They look at those projects, when you have those kind of projects, they look at it real favorably. And so it was great having that meeting with the city yesterday, and I thought it went really well, just to echo what y'all were saying. But
Well, this gentleman, and of course, again, you heard this, but he asked that I please thank y'all for quickly looking at the road, looking at the infrastructure piece, and being able, within a short amount of time, being able to get back to him. So now he's 100% moving forward, and hopefully be ready to start construction first of the year.
here's one.
I want to ask a question. I don't know this. Number one is, on our capital improvement plan, is there a limit to how many projects you can put on that?
As long as they're not in your district. That's the only thing that they had delineated was they couldn't go in.
District 3 is used to the short end. Let's do it.
Oh, boy, here we go.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to speak now. I've been quiet till now.
But let me finish.
No, there is not a limit, because that's our wish list.
Right. I agree with every project on here. I mean, the catalyst site, 137 definitely needs to be revisited, especially with the infrastructure we got going in and out to facilitate the growth that we hope follows that. My only question was, I see Mr. Scott here, is the building
Couldn't wait.
building out the sportsplex with the acres that we already got, would that qualify, or is that a smaller, too small, or is that something?
No, that should be on there. I mean, we need to,
I'll settle this.
fire stations, libraries, parks and recreation, every facility or, department that we can think.
That isn't my district, but we are playing ball there today. We have been playing ball there today, so it was on the, but it does have
All of
to
those
be.
things need to be in the capital improvement plan, and we didn't have that property the last time we visited our capital improvement plan. In fact, I'll just tell you, we didn't have a capital improvement plan. I created one on the back of a napkin one day, and then we formalized it. It's in a napkin holder in my office, but in any event, we didn't have that property. So it was actually, the initial one was an evaluation of all the constitutional officers' office space needs at the time and storage space needs. That's what we started with, because we knew we had an immediate need at that time. So one of these utility construction projects was in there, best I can remember, but we'll go back and we'll add all these other things to it.
Mr. Scott?
Yeah, I was just
Well,
asking.
and go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna wait till y'all got to the polls before I shared some earnings, and I'll submit to Mr. Harris a list of things. But we miss out on grants because we don't have a capital improvement plan in the comp plan. And, there's points we could get to get more opportunities also. So it's important to include it all the way through, put in the comp plan, even if you can't fund it. Let's say, whoops, you can't fund it, we'll have to revisit it, but.
You amend it is what you do. You're supposed to be able to fund a project within 5 years if it's in your capital, if it's in the comp plan, capital element. But in my mind, we don't have to put it in the comp plan. We just need to have it in our capital improvement plan.
But you say you get extra for the comp
We get
plan?
extra points for that grants if it's in the comp plan.
So what do we got to do?
Or-
You put it in
or
there,
capital
you put it
improvement.
in there, and if you can't fund it in 5 years, you amend your, comp plan to reflect that it's now in for the next 5 years.
Well, I would like to see that as well.
Put them in there.
Yeah.
And the thing about too, we talk about big projects, there may be some small projects in there too.
Yeah.
That you, low hanging fruit, I don't mind getting to them that too.
Sure.
But anyway,
But you're gonna get what you need and get it to Mr. Harris?
yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you thinking about us, Dave. We're looking about $500,000 at the economy this weekend for this tournament, so. just
38 teams,
just some
that's
generic-
38 kids with 38 moms and dads and little brothers and sisters.
Well, moving on from that, I just got one other thing real quick.
I think that's what that's.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Stapleton?
No, go ahead, finish.
I was just joking about it.
38 times 12.
Huh?
That's 38 times 12.
Yeah.
On the team.
38, yeah.
Plus parents.
Also, in talking to these people and talking about having a plan ready to go, and I'm speaking specifically to the catalyst site right now, is we've got ARPA funds now, and I would like to get an engineer to start getting whatever we need to make that ready to go as soon as possible. So,
Well, I can add, I need a task order for the work north of town that we talked
Yeah.
about. I can go ahead and get them started now and bring you a task order. But, I had already gotten them started on the catalyst site because they had to do the engineer's estimate of probable cost. So we've
Yeah.
got a general layout, but I'll just tell them to get started. We'll bring you the task orders for those.
is everybody on board with that, by the way?
Yeah, I'm on board with it. My only question would be are we're loading up. We're loading up one firm. Is there a way to ask who can give us deliver that product quicker or the fastest? I mean, I know we got master agreements and I'm not knocking any
I
firm.
can
but
make
we
some
loaded
phone
one up.
calls. I can tell you right now that anyone in any business out there worth the weight in salt should be loaded up right now.
Yeah.
And what all of them are doing right now is they are agreeing to do projects for one another if necessary, and they're subcontracting things out that we never see in order to bring the work.
I was just thinking time to
Product
ask
together.
get
Oh, yeah.
it quick.
I will say, I've got some experience using some companies where we've done some things like that were not good experiences. We've used some companies that we used some companies one time.
I understand.
And it's just difficult right now. It's difficult for everyone that's in the engineering business to try to produce these projects, but we're battling hard to try to get ours out.
My point was just to bring it before the board here now, so we could get it on the agenda, get it rolling.
I'll get you
Make sure
task
everybody's on the
orders. Yeah, your
same
task
page.
orders will be back to you in your next meeting. What I don't want to commit to is spending a pile of money on that stuff at the catalyst site any more than we have to get us closer to where we need to be. Because that's gonna be some extensive engineering out there.
Yeah.
But I'll get you something where we can get the ball rolling anyway.
Well, and when I was talking to Ms. Green, another thing that she said is, and we are a physically responsible county, and our balance sheet looks good. And she said that, there was a big opportunity there to take those ARPA funds that we do have. You couldn't use it on federal grants, but you could use it on state grants, and you could do matching grants, and you could extend that ARPA money on out, further than what we've got. You can make it go a lot further, so.
That is true. The thing that concerns me right now is that the state is taking in so much of their money now is federal money,
Yeah,
which
you can't use it.
creates a different problem.
Yeah.
Now, I'm waiting, I've got to get an opinion. I'm working on this other opinion as well regarding the use of those funds, because if you recall, when we started with the ARPA funds, Treasury had said that we could do these utilities projects. They specifically named wastewater and water plants. And we started to do that. And then we went back and amended our paperwork and took that out when they came out many months later, with the new guidance that said that we could take that funding as a reimbursement of lost revenue. The assumption being that every community lost revenue and they provided a standard allowance of up to $10 million. Well, ours should be $8 million. So we went back and amended it because I didn't want to have a federal project being built, because it's easier. In fact, we got an opinion, a legal opinion from Neighbors Giblin on that. I told them, I said it would be easier for me to not be constructing a federally funded project, take the money instead as the standard allowance as reimbursement for lost revenue, and then it becomes more like general revenue to the board, and then I go out and fund my project. Now, having said that, I'm still following Davis-Bacon, Buy American Steel, and all those other things that we have to follow, because as we learned with the CARES Act funding, they make up the rules as they go, and they can change everything. I don't want to get my project completed and then them come back out and say, well, you had to do, did you not do Davis-Bacon and Buy American and all these things? So that's why we're putting those things in place, even though we're not listing that as a federally funded construction project.
Which, she said that was a wise thing we done. She said some counties couldn't handle it. They were spending like drunken sailors, and they had to go the other route with them because they couldn't control their money. But she said that we were good, and that was a wise thing that we had done, so.
Did she say though, and that was one of my questions, or was gonna ask moving forward, like if we hired her firm, to go after these grants or manage these grants and how we spend them, is that something that they take on that liability so that the county and the county people
No,
of Suwannee County?
they don't. No.
See, that's the little part that scares me
You can't
about it.
exempt yourself of liability because you're ultimately the recipient of the funds. Now, in this particular case, I was convinced when I read that, and that's why I brought it to the board, that this was a better route for us. Before I brought it to the board, I got the opinion from Neighbors Giblin that, yes, that's the way to go. So that's why I came back and did that. But no, we'll never exempt ourselves from liability on the use of the funds. But that's why, again, I'm maybe overdoing it on some of these requirements that come with federal funds. Maybe I don't have to do that, but we're doing it anyway because I'm concerned on the tail end when the audit comes.
Mr. Stapleton,
And they make that audit up, not interrupt, but they make that audit up, like you say, kind of as they're going.
Right.
You know, that's the
Current.
unfortunate.
They can change it.
Right.
Mr. Stapleton, do you have something?
Yeah, I would, so are you saying this young lady come speak to us at the next meeting?
Well, I'm gonna try to arrange, I don't know what her schedule is, but I just got this yesterday, and we just had a phone conversation with her yesterday, and I was pretty excited about it, and that's why I want to get it in front of y'all today and see if I couldn't work something out to get her here and go from there.
I would just like to add, I'm 100% in support of whether we add staff or whether we add outside help. I mean, prime example of this is just last year, we had a broadband grant. That grant was filled out by our county office. I was chairman at the time. And during that time, we had a security breach on my emails. I believe you can attest to this, that you got 2 emails sent to you that stated that I was asking you to contact me for assistance on the matter.
I got one too.
So
Everyone got it.
Boy, if you needed money or something, I was like, what's this?
at this time, our office, our staff filled out the broadband application. I was the chairman, so my email was attached to it. And it had the county phone number for the county office for any questions. Well, during this time, during these breaches, there was 2 emails that was sent requesting additional information for that application. And me being very cautious, if I didn't recognize it from the county or from something or a citizen, I didn't click on it. 100% scared to click on anything as it just making something worse. With that being said, there was 2 emails missed by myself that they requested additional information, which caused our application not to be considered. As soon as we found out that, I told staff to please reach out to whoever you could, whether it's state or national level, ask for some assistance and see if they reconsider. But that was no avail. I say all this to say I have no problem taking responsibility for that, but the explanation for that is my email security was breached. I missed that, plain and simple. With that being said, I do feel like we need more assistance to where people are able to live closer and something such as this happen and not happen again.
Fed that agency and they could,
I would also say though, when you're dealing with an application on a national level and you have an email contact and you have a phone number that's next to it, that most all grant applications that we deal with on the telephone. They pick up the phone and call if there's money involved, and you're able to pick up the phone and call them. There was nothing but an email sent. I feel like also I would state that without being a national application grant, our governor is not aligned, so to speak, with the representation we have in Washington DC at this time. I've done a step further because I was concerned and upset that we missed it. So I went back and looked to see who got awarded those funds for broadband. The state of Florida got 0. The whole state. There was nothing come to the state of Florida. So am I disappointed? Absolutely. Am I disappointed that I missed something? 100%. Do I take the blame for it? Absolutely. Do I think that county staff was, I didn't fill the application out. I didn't put the back together. I didn't do all that, but I'm not passing blame. I take blame. But it's worth explaining when I have email breaches, and that's the fact, and it's documented, and we had the discussions. That's why I didn't click on it. It was abbreviated at the top. It didn't say something from, this is a grant application, we need you to blah, blah, blah. It said none of that. It said NFTIA and something to that effect that I had no knowledge of or understanding that something I was looking for. So we'll move forward, but I say all that to say we need additional help. We need people that's what they do all day, every day, and something like this doesn't happen or get missed.
I don't disagree.
I mean, I got 2 phones sitting right here, one of them's mine, and one of them's hitting Oils, the county phone's in the truck. Can I carry 3 phones around everywhere I go? I appreciate you sharing that with us, but I mean, it goes right along with what we've been talking about is we need folks that do this for a living that burden's on them. I mean, you can't catch it all. It's a lot, and I agree 100%. We need some
Well,
type of
I just, there was a lot of effort put together on that application, and it wasn't myself, it was Mr. Norris's office, it was so many businesses through the county that put so much time and effort, even our county office. And for that to come back on 2 different requests sent just via email, it's disappointing, and I wish that wouldn't happen, but it did, and it's oversight. And at any time, I have to accept responsibility for that, and I have to move forward.
Can I make a very brief comment on it?
Please, sir.
I've been dealing in these grants for a long time. Shannon does a magnificent job working with me, but I've been doing it a lot longer than even Shannon has done this, many, many years more than Shannon has done this. But I'm going to tell you that the grant administrators at the state and federal level that we deal with pick up the phone and call us. And we pick up the phone and call them, and we're on a first name basis, and that's the way we do business. When the county office discovered what had occurred with this, we knew immediately that no one had ever received a single phone call from those administrators, not one. They were not our typical people that we're dealing with federal and state funds. But more importantly, when I discovered that not a single city or county government in the state of Florida was awarded any of those funds, that spoke volumes. Told me everything I needed to know. There was never any intention. Now, this is my editorial comment. Let me qualify this statement. But my opinion is that there was never any intention of ever spending a single dollar of that money in the state of Florida, or there'd be some evidence of it. Some city, some county would have received some of those funds in Florida, and not one did. I'm of the opinion that before that money was ever set up to be spent by the federal government, someone already knew where that money was going to go. But anyway,
Mr. Chairman, I was told that same speech that young lady gave to us that night, she'd given to 10 other boards, you know, so.
Well, appreciate you clarifying that up. Anything else?
No.
Any other business, Mr. Harris, that we need to attend to here?
We've covered way more than.
Well, and I'm sorry about that.
No, I'm glad that you let us talk about these things because everything, like we said the other day, is moving fast and furious. We need to have these conversations probably every time we meet.
Yeah.
We'll put as many on an additional item as we can, but there's some things that just, they'll come up overnight. We'll get an email, a phone call, and we've got to come in and say, okay, you want us to approach this, how to go after this.
Well, and you know, that's kind of just why I want to bring it up. I knew it was important, it's time sensitive, and I want all the commissioners to be involved and have knowledge of what's going on, and as much as I can, you know, without getting in trouble or going to jail over it, so.
Mr. Chairman, I will say, I mean, thanks to Jimmy, I do appreciate him. He's really done a lot, and Mr. Harrison and his staff out there as well. I mean, just as you guys are saying, things happen overnight. I mean, Jimmy and I got a phone call out of the blue the other day, and, you know, had to make a meeting the very next day. I mean, you've done this, I mean, we've all done it, and things are happening fast, and we have to react fast, and react accordingly and responsibly. And I think we're all trying to do that, and I appreciate Jimmy and his staff, and obviously our county staff for all they're doing.
Jimmy and his staff is
One, yeah.
Three.
No, you forget, my staff is all of you.
Yeah.
He does put a lot of time into it. I don't think people see, you know, he does put a lot of extra hours into what he does, and he's really dedicated to the county.
But let's don't fool him. I don't act like he's working hard. He's naturally a talker.
Well, he is that, but that's the guy you want there.
Mr. Chairman, I will say, Mr. Norris, brought to my attention after the meeting the other night, which can't speak business names, but a company we thought we had lost, to another county. They didn't circle around and
Oh, yeah.
Come back.
done.
Oh, yeah.
But that company is in dire need of some of that infrastructure that we're chasing to get. So there's time is of the essence to get it done.
But I just want to thank everybody involved. I appreciate the hard work. I know we're all working for Suwannee County as a whole, and that's the main goal. And look, folks, I got to go pay some
Me too.
taxes, so
Okay, good.
I just need a motion.
So moved.
Sir, wait,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Before you guys leave, I'd like to give you some suggestions. I'd like you guys to put more effort into cleaning the illegal signs on the rights of way and utility poles. The rec department has a nice water park now, and there needs to be tables and some shade. There needs to be more trash receptacles, and where the slides are in that park area, when it rains, the water stays there for a week, 3 days, 5 days. The drainage is terrible. If anything can be done about that.
You gonna put that in the capital improvement plan? I'm just talking this.
Here it is.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. With that, I just need a motion to dismiss.
Have one.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Hale, second by Commissioner Stapleton. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Thank you.